Hey guys! So what is a person not capable of when it comes to the ability to save money on construction? Of course, there's nothing wrong with this. It's actually great since materials in these cases are often used that would otherwise just be in a junkyard. You'll be surprised to see what people had the idea to use as construction materials out of what seem to be unsuitable objects. Today in this video, we're going to talk about some extremely unusual construction methods. So the average decomposition time for a car tire is 120 to 140 years. So the rubber from these retired cars can be considered a reliable construction material. The technology has been tried several times, and you can find projects with it around the world. This video is showing the construction of the center of an early childhood development center in Cape Town, South Africa. They used it to replace bricks and concrete blocks here. At first, they fill them with dirt from the inside to increase their weight and rigidity, and then they are stacked. After this, the wall is painted with a well-known mix of clay and thatch. These tires are a source of long-term pollution in the environment. The tires don't decompose biologically and are fire hazards. If they do catch fire, it's extremely hard to put them out, and they release harmful combustion byproducts into the atmosphere while burning, including carcinogens. While scientists are thinking of various ways to process old tires, it's still hard to find cases of using them as construction material in buildings. This non-trivial idea of building a private home can be taken as incorrect or harmful to life, but there are people who have used this technology to make walls, and we'll talk about that later. Overall, the process of building a home out of tires is the same as bricklaying. You just decide to use old tires with the same size instead of bricks that are stacked on each other and linked. The foundation is made out of the same tires after a pit was dug where the house will be. After making the correct network, he got to work placing them just like you would place concrete blocks or bricks. When the first row was placed and checked against a diagonal, the builder filled the insides with sand. Considering their tires, they are placed in a circular form instead of a shape with corners like in traditional construction. Now, despite the home being made of standby materials, the builder kept to all the norms in construction. So he put a reinforcement inside the walls that would serve as the linchpin. Considering the heavy loads on the door and window openings, the experimental builder carefully reinforced these areas with a cement mixture. Since the future homeowner wanted to have round windows in the rear wall, their frames were also made out of tires, just placed vertically and well secured. The openings for large windows were made in the same way as the door openings, with a simultaneous reinforcement from side connections. The builder filled in the holes with a normal mixture made out of clay and sawdust, with some rocks and bits of bricks inside as well. After the walls were at the proper height, they were coated with plaster on both sides. The exterior plaster layer wasn't too thick to give it a striking appearance, but the interior walls were even. He decided to make the ceiling extremely simple, so he placed boards long enough to have a little sticking out on both sides, then secured asbestos cement boards on them. After putting in the windows, doors, and wall paint, this inventive builder could pass the summer evenings in his amazing home made out of abandoned material and enjoy the fresh air on his own patio. Additionally, over 1,000 old tires found a new purpose and didn't go to a landfill. So how do you feel about this way to use typical firewood, stovewood, or cordwood to build? Now, people have been doing this since the 10th century BCE, but despite its age, it's still a useful technique. It can still be used to build saunas like these two people did. They just used two types of material building these buildings. The first was a standard cement mix, and the second was dried logs without any bark. The wall building process is similar to bricklaying. The wooden parts are placed on top of each other, and the space around them is filled with the cement mix. The wood makes up about 40 to 60% of the wall's volume. The ends of the logs stick out a couple inches, and the building itself has an unusual, attractive appearance. It keeps heat in just as well as normal walls. The trend of making homes out of old cargo containers hasn't quite died yet, and people all over the world are making marvels to create something cozy in such a limited space. The internal size of a standard ocean container is just 40 feet long and 8 feet wide. Part of the space is occupied by insulation, which is necessary for a home. So you are left with a very limited space in the end. That's why people try to use every last square foot, and their furniture typically has many uses. But that's not where the use of these containers end. The universal shape of a cargo container opens the way to creativity for builders and designers. Canadian specialists thought to make them into a pool. The advantages compared to traditional pools are obvious. You don't have to wait several weeks and turn your backyard into a construction site, since the pools are made at a factory and come ready to be used. You just need to hook it up, and you don't even need to bury it. The producer makes a window into a side, which turns the 8-foot deep pool into a decoration that can be put in any open space in your yard. The main thing to pay attention to if you want to use a container in your project is that it should be relatively new, since an old one might absorb pollution from the items that were in it. But here's something very eco-friendly, since this construction method replaces standard materials like cement with clay. Over 1,000 years ago, our ancestors knew that if you put plant fiber, like thatch, into clay and carefully mixed it, you would get a material that is just as tough as cement. And you can even make homes out of it. The clay for these projects is just typical clay. You could even use what was dug up out of the construction hole. Good fillers include thatch, barley, or date palm fibers, depending on the region and availability. The carefully mixed mixture is first spread on the bricks, then placed into a formwork. After it hardens, it has made strong walls. People in northern Finland thought of a way to decrease the amount of plastic waste going to their local landfill. They decided to use them for inexpensive and simple, but durable and functional buildings. They include barriers for staircases, patios, and even home construction. The key role is played by plastic bottles, which are used in place of bricks. They are filled with a light plastic-like packing or wrapping plastic to make them stronger. Then, the bottles are placed on top of each other in rows, and the space between them is filled with cement. An advantage of this method, aside from the accessibility being that preparing the bottles doesn't require any special skills, is that the process doesn't take much time or energy. This old evergreen plant has been valued by people for a long time. However, recently, it has started being used as construction material as an alternative to typical wood. These buildings are considered more economical in countries with bamboo. These countries use bamboo as construction material, which lets them lower the costs of construction. For example, this greenhouse in Thailand cost the owner just $25. Bamboo is used mainly to make the supports as well as the frame for the roof. Do not underestimate the value of bamboo as a construction material. It is used to make full homes in Hawaii, and they can be done in 1 to 10 days. However, it's not that simple. The company Bamboo Lebanon Homes developed a technique to make bamboo walls, ceilings, barriers, and more. The process involves several simple steps. First is the design, where the client discusses the appearance of the future home, its layout, and more. Next, the construction companies start to build the home in its own shop, not on site. It doesn't take long, since the construction environment doesn't depend on the weather. Finally, the ready-made home is taken apart and transported to the place it will stand and reassembled over a few days. A company from Slovakia also developed a construction technique similar to bamboo paneling. Separate pieces are also made at a shop in advance, but they use thick bundles of thatch instead. It undergoes special processing to guarantee fire resistance, don't worry. Also, the thatch is put in the wooden frame in a way that the thick, even surface protects the inside from humidity and heat loss. Building homes using these panels is 100% dry and has no waste. Building one floor would take a small team of builders 2 to 4 days. The expenses for heating a house like this are pleasantly surprising, since heat loss when using thatch as a wall material basically doesn't exist. So, as we saw today, the main thing in alternative construction is finding an alternative material that can replace traditional bricks or concrete blocks. In this case, bags filled with dirt were chosen as the base. Building something with only them would be very unstable, so the builder used several methods to reinforce the walls. First, he coated them on the inside and outside with a mix of clay and thatch. Second, he placed barbed wire in between several rows that would use its hooks to secure the bags, not letting them move away from each other. And third, after placing almost all the layers, he reinforced the walls with a metal frame. Of course, a lot of energy would go into building like this, but the almost $0 cost of the walls and partitions would delight any creative homeowner. Well, that's all for today. Be sure to leave a like and comment. Let me know which one of these houses you'd actually be willing to live in. And we'll see you next time.